Bitcoin has had a great breakout to the upside as predicted on the channel, and we're going to review BTC on the 1 hour time frame here and just check to see what is going on, how much higher we have for BTC to be able to go before we see that inevitable pull to the downside. So as we kind of zoom in here, we can see that we were tracking in the consolidation pattern over the weekend, dancing around the 50 EMA, the 50 SMA, and the 200 EMA. So the red line is your 50 EMA, the yellow line is the 50 SMA, the white line is your 200 EMA. Okay, now you can see that the price action is vastly higher than all three of these. All three of these lines and these moving averages have started to tilt upwards on the 1 hour time frame as we had this break to the upside. We entered into our range at 45,606 to 46,975. Now, initially, I thought we were going to have a pit stop just around about here. We kind of did get rejected briefly, but then we continued this run to the upside. Okay, so I was actually expecting us to kind of consolidate down here a little bit before we pushed on up. That didn't happen. We just continued to push to the upside. And that's great, but not the best of news. It does mean that we are likely to see a bigger correction on the 1 hour time frame here before we continue our move upwards, which I do think is something that is likely to occur. Now, this breakout has been fantastic. The great kind of sideways ranging market here. This in itself kind of makes us look like a three-wave pattern to the upside. Okay, so anyone who understands Elliott wave theory, we use the Fibonacci retracement tools with the extensions. We only Fibonacci tools that we use here on the channel. Seems to be some misunderstandings or some real good confusions in the chats. We don't understand what we're doing here, but Elliott wave theory, if you understand it, you'll know exactly what I'm doing. Here you can see the 1-to-1 to the 1.236 is the ultimate target range. Now, I don't think, and I said this yesterday, I didn't think that we were likely to push up into this range, but this move to the upside, the failure to have our consolidation down here, has actually now put this onto the map. So this is 47,666 to 49,145. Now, obviously 49,000 would put us into a new local high. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. I think we're going to be on the lower side of this argument, but I wouldn't mind us if we did push up. But for the most part, I wouldn't expect it to do so. Now, if I go ahead and just remove the fibs off here, you can see the expectation. So as you can kind of see, the three-wave pattern here, pull this into view, right? The three-wave pattern is looking like this, right? And it's because we haven't had much of a B wave here that the C wave has gone up higher. But also internally here, we're ending in 5 waves. This 5-wave pattern is basically a wave 1, a wave 2. All of this is our wave 3, and then 4, then 5. Okay, and I think we potentially still have more to that wave 3 before we have the wave 4 anyway. So it does look like we're going to see a little bit of volatility, over today, over the weekend, and probably push up into this final move next week. And then from here, we'll get that rejection where we are, of course, going to be targeting back down lower than $40,000, in my opinion. Okay, now the higher that we go here on the 1 hour time frame, the more that we are going to be protected with the lows that will come in the future. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Now, you might not understand Elliott wave theory. You might not like Elliott wave theory. It doesn't really matter. There's so many different ways that you can look at the market that you come to the same conclusion. This break to the upside has basically starting to run out of momentum. It's great to see it. It's great to kind of come up here, but we are entering into this first area of resistance, as I mentioned earlier, right? So this is where the supply is likely to sell on retail investors. So there'll be premium prices being paid here briefly, but it will be brief because the correction here, I think, will be brief before we move up into that slightly higher range where the correction will be much deeper. Okay, so when we take a look at this from a support resistance area, we're entering into the resistance or the supply range. And we'll be looking to come on down, and we'll be looking to try to find good support on this previous area of support just down here at $44,500 to $45,000. Okay, before we go up into this higher range, which obviously is just full of resistance. Okay, this is the area where we were previously rejected quite heavily and aggressively so on the sell the news event from the Bitcoin at spot ETFs. So that's going to be something that remains. It's something that we're still likely to see. And so therefore we are likely to still see this as our area of resistance. Some people might want to then look at this and say, look, it's a cup and handle, something to that effect. And if I go ahead and find the right tool for that, do I have it somewhere on here? No, I don't. Okay. I can find it here. So if we are to see a kind of like double top bearish situation, some people are going to say, look, it's a cup and handle and we're going to basically rally on up into new all-time highs. A possibility for sure, but of course, cup and handles in themselves, if we do see something like this, they are only approximately 67% accurate. So we're not going to necessarily be able to rely on it too heavily, but it is something that we'll have to kind of consider. The move to the upside here could be a cup, and therefore we'll be looking for a correction probably down towards this area of 43k on the handle. The handle cannot retrace more than 50%. So if we were to see this move to the upside in this kind of cup and handle pattern, it would be invalid should the price come down lower than 43,455. A candle is not allowed to go down more than 50% of the depth of the cup. Okay, so we're going to bear those things in mind. If you're not into Elliott wave theory, there's lots of other ways that you could look at the market and try to draw your own conclusions from it. Anything else on this 1 hour time frame worth noting? Not on that front, but we can see that the stochastic RSI has still got some room to the upside to be had. Now, if I turn this off, we can show you some of the bearish scenarios. We've got some bearish divergence here on the 1 hour time frame, showing us here with weakness. So what's going on is the yellow line is the RSI, that's the relative strength index, and we're looking for price changes in relation to that RSI. What we specifically mean is price has gone up higher, but the relative strength index has gone down lower. Okay, so we've got these lower peaks whilst the price is going up into higher highs. That is bearish divergence. It shows you weakness with the moves to the upside. So as we are having these higher moves, we are seeing that the RSI is losing momentum, showing us weakness, showing us bearish divergence, meaning we are likely to get rejected. Again, we're talking about $44,500 to $45,000 before we rally on up. Invalidation, of course, is something that we need to talk about. How low does it have to go to prevent us moving up to $46,000? Well, for that, realistically speaking, we have to come down lower than $43,500. Okay, so anything lower than $43,500 is going to basically prevent us having that five-wave pattern from an Elliott wave theory point of view. It will also prevent us from having a cup and handle. It will prevent all those things, and basically we'll have our local top here, and then we'll look to have more aggressive moves to the downside overall. So for the most part, Bitcoin is in a pretty interesting spot. We've got some bearish divergence, so don't be too surprised if price does in fact drop down. We have a stochastic RSI that's actually struggling right now about the midway level. It has plenty of room to go to the upside, but I suspect actually we're likely to see corrections to the downside. The relative strength index is also heavily overbought and is looking for moves to the downside as well. Aggressively here, I would say that we are likely to get some rejection here. Now, ultimately, I'm hoping that this is short-lived and just a small move to the downside. But if not, then we might actually just start to see a bit more of an aggressive sell-off pattern. And yeah, we might actually break down lower than those 43.5Ks, moving down more aggressively back towards the double bottom scenario of $38,500. So that's a quick brief update on Bitcoin. Why not check out this video here where we're talking about an altcoin gem that I think you guys must know about.